Hello. So, welcome to another look at a prayer in the Bible as we're just looking at different prayers across the Bible, and we just share some thoughts on how it can help us in our prayer life. So, this week we're looking at Colossians 1, verses 9 to 12, which says this: For this reason, since the day we heard about you, we have not stopped praying for you. We continually ask God to fill you with the knowledge of His will through all the wisdom and understanding that the Spirit gives, so that you may live a life worthy of the Lord and please Him in every way, bearing fruit in every good work, growing in the knowledge of God, being strengthened with all power according to His glorious might, so that you may have great endurance and patience, and giving joyful thanks to the Father who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of His holy people in the kingdom of light. These verses are really a continuation of a theme that we talked on last week. Last week, we looked at how Paul prayed for the people in Ephesus and how we can be inspired by how Paul prayed for them in our prayer for others. This week, it's a similar concept, but a different place. We're looking at how Paul prays for the people of Colossia. In some respects, as I say, it's very similar. In the verses that's previous to what I've just read there, Paul describes that he's heard of the acts of faith of the people in Colossia, and he gives thanks to God for them. Also, in the verses previous to this, he acknowledges that there is fruit being born of the kingdom because of their faithful service to God, really just trying to encourage the people of Colossia. Once Paul has finished encouraging the people, he starts to tell them that he is praying for them. Now, first of all, just before we look at the prayer, who has made a difference to you in your life? Who has been someone who has, or in right now, bringing you God's strength and God's truth, God's encouragement? Who is someone you see as faithful to God? Why don't you message them? Why don't you let them know what you see and how encouraged you are by them? Why don't you let them know what a difference they're either making to you or to the world around them? I know we don't serve God to get praise from others, but does that mean we shouldn't offer people praise and encouragement? Of course not. We all need to hear this. So why don't you right now just let people know who have made a difference or are making a difference in your life, in the world that they're in? It's always such a good thing to build each other up. Now, the prayer. What does Paul pray for the people of Colossia? He prays that they will be filled of the knowledge of the will of God, to be filled with the wisdom from the Spirit. And both of these are for the purposes of living lives that please God. He also prays that they are to be people who bear fruit for God, to be people who grow in the knowledge of God, to be people who are strengthened by God, so that they can be patient and enduring in this life. And he prays that they're able to maintain thankfulness and praise at all times. These are some great things to pray. First of all, I love the first 2 points and Paul's reasoning. I think we do all need to grow in the knowledge of God, and I think we all do need the wisdom of God given by the Spirit. But the knowledge of what God's will is for us is incredibly important too. If we're able to be people who not only live lives that please God, but also live lives that bear the fruit of the kingdom as well. If we aren't in God's will, then whose will are we in? Probably our own. Probably. We need to be a people who are more willing to be living and moving in the will of God than in the will of our own selves. And I think you ask any Christian, do you want to be living in the will of God? They'll say yes. But many people don't always know what the will of God is for them in the season that they're in. I love that this prayer includes making sure people know about the will of God. And actually, I want to be someone that's always in the will of God. So when people let me know that they're praying, that I know the will of God in my life and I'm able to stay in that, I think that's vital in my walk with God. I also want to focus on the fact that he talks about the strength of God. Why is the strength of God for our lives here so important? So we can be patient and so we can endure. When I look around the world today, I see a people who have less and less patience. We live in an instant society, and all too often I see people walk away from important things because they don't have the patience to keep waiting on God in the midst of it. When I look at the Bible sometimes, it can take decades, if not generations, for the promises of God to come. And yet, for some of us, if we don't see the outcome of the promises of God in a week, we move on from them. Don't be like that. We need to pray for patience for each other so that we can keep persistently leaning on and waiting on God. But not only patience, but endurance. Yes, we all need it. Following Jesus in this world isn't easy, and we can all come under attack all the time from lots of different angles, and all the more so in the season of Jesus' return nears. What do we do in a tough time? More and more people are walking away because they say they just can't take it. With God, we can. Without Him, we can't. But with God, we can. He never promises to us that everything will be easy, but He does promise to never leave us. He does promise to never forsake us, and He does promise to love us always. We need to endure through the things of this world, which are temporary, for the things of the kingdom, which are eternal. And we can't do it in our own strength, but God's love endures forever. So we need to pray for that endurance and that enduring love for each other in this world that we live in, because it's hard. And finally, I want to talk about worship, thanksgiving. Paul prays that they maintain to be a people of thanksgiving. It's very easy to fall into the doom and gloom mentality of this world. Just 30 minutes on any news channel can do this to us. We need to maintain that we always have something to give thanks for, because we always have a God with us. And we need to be praying that not just for ourselves, but other people know this truth and are able to hold on to this truth, to be rooted in this truth. Why? So it maintains their ability to give thanks in the face of all things. And I think that's a fantastic prayer to pray for others. Again, like last week, who do you need to pray these verses for today? Why don't you make some time and pray these verses for someone? And then don't just stop there. Then tell them and encourage them. God is with you and for you. Let's be lifting each other up in prayer.